Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you feeling this week?
I'm making it. I'm getting there.
Good.
But now this changing weather, ugh, it's killing me. It's
Yeah.
freezing. Oh
Yeah,
no.
I was cleaning out my garage on Monday and it was hot. Gosh, it was hot.
Ooh,
Sweating and then I about froze to death. I got up yesterday morning. I've been cold ever since.
I know. Me too. Oh, well, let me ask you a question for everybody gets on. When is the last day for us to turn in our assignments? I am so behind. I am just drowning with my new job and with everything. Like, I am not this kind of student. I swear I'm not. You can look at my grades. I am this kind of student, but I'm just swamped. I'm going to turn all my work in, though. When is the last day?
I would say probably December the 12th.
Okay, I'm gonna have it all in. Don't drop me.
Oh, you're fine. That's why we will finish up in 2 weeks and a half on that weekend. On the
Hmm.
18th and 19th, we'll finish up, and that leaves you one, two, three, 3 weeks or so to finish up everything.
Okay, great. I mean,
Um,
it's been such a change going from elementary coaching to then going to high school teaching.
yeah,
It's it's been a lot,
yeah.
but I am gonna get my life together.
I have a colleague. I talked with him yesterday, and he'd worked here for 10 years, and now he's gone back to be a high school. He's one last two rise high school teacher, and he was talking about he
I'm so
gets up early and comes
yeah,
home, goes to bed early, and he's talking about, but he's hoping second semester because he'll have all of his lesson plans and he'll
yes, that's
be in
my
the
hope.
swing of things. It won't be nearly as bad in the spring.
Yeah, that's my hope too. It's just the getting started and the getting back
Yep.
into the whole lesson planning thing. And I think if I
Yep.
was elementary, thank you. I think if I was elementary, it would be different because, that's the world I came from. But
Yeah.
just high school and the teaching and all the things, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not.
He's experiencing the same thing. He's not, but as he said, the thing for him that he's really enjoyed is gets his weekends back.
Right. And like I said, I am much better. It's such a, even though it's a lot, it's a, it's a, I'm not as, I don't feel the dread that I felt when I was coaching.
Yeah.
Like I'm better. I needed to get out of that environment. So I'm
Well,
glad.
you're only responsible for yourself
Right.
as a
Right.
teacher, and that's one of those things that when we talk about job satisfaction, and I just got through meeting with one of my doctoral students, and she's working on principal. Part of that is this incredible sense of responsibility that you have
Yeah.
for for every kid in the building and all the teachers and all that. And the beauty of going back to the classroom is you're only responsible for you.
Right. And it's been great.
Yep. Yeah, it's different. Well, welcome everybody. I see Corey's with us and Jennifer. Hope Jessica and Jesse will come along here shortly. I'll go ahead. It's 6 o'clock. It's 6:01. We better get started. So I've shared my screen. So let's look and see where we are right now. And Siobhan just asked a great question. I think everything will be due in both courses by December the 12th. And so we've got one more weekly session next Wednesday, and then we have a week and a half after that, we do our final face to face in Charlotte. So uh, let's kind of go over some of these things and catch up on a little housekeeping here. Um, so this week you were to interview the chair or a member of your school's intervention team, whatever you call it, SST, care team, MTSS team, to make sure where you are at your school in terms of doing intervention. And then sit in on a IEP meeting. And again, as we talked about last week, the notion here is you got to know what the 90 before the 90 is, or the 30 before the 90, according to where your school is on intervention. And the reason why that's important for a school administrator is you are directly responsible for intervention at your school. It is not somebody else's responsibility like EC is. EC, you have EC teachers, EC department chairs, EC, EC compliance technicians, the EC department. It's all federally funded, but intervention is state funded, and it's a school-based committee, which means that you are responsible for the intervention at your school to make sure that it goes as legally required. So you need to find out what is going on at your school and in your district that you would be potentially responsible for when you became a school administrator. You need to be in that habit of knowing I'm responsible for this. Now, the idea of going to the IEP meeting is I had one of my former master students call me this week, and he was talking about training to be a LEA rep. Many of you, if you assume an administrative role, it will be as an assistant principal like Jessica is, and you'll be the low person on the totem pole, so you'll have to be the LEA rep in IEP meetings. You need to know the rules, and you need to understand that it doesn't matter who came up with the plans, that all decisions are collaborative. That's one of the hardest things is the EC people did all the paperwork, they did all the plans, they wrote the IEP, but the parent can still say no. It's a collaborative decision. And we talked about your role as LEA last week about you got to know you can't just be grabbing people off the street because of FERPA laws, all the privacy that surrounds that now. And so you were to follow up on what actually goes on at your school. Looking at next week, we're going to be working on cyberbullying. You need to be looking ahead and trying to find your district policy on cyberbullying. There is a cyberbullying law. Let me pull that up right quick. I should have already had that. Right here it is. And so the biggest problem that I see with cyberbullying is principals make these excuses, or they pretend like there are reasons why they don't have to deal with it. There are not. I was just got through a meeting literally 10 minutes ago with one of my doctoral students who's a principal right over there at Cliffside. She couldn't come yesterday because she was doing she had a parent come in with threats on the phone. That's your responsibility. You have to follow up with that. Now, my advice to you when you get a cyberbullying like that where a parent brings in a phone is call the police. They have warrant powers that you don't have, but supposedly this kid had sent via text a death threat. That's something you better take seriously. And so here is the law. Now, for some reason, people think that that the law was repealed. It was not. There was one subsection of the law that was repealed, and that was about a Twitter war. If Siobhan and I get in a Twitter war and I start losing, I can't claim that she's cyberbullying because I entered into that. Hold on a second. And so, if kids engage in some kind of a social media campaign against one another and one starts losing, they can't claim to be the victim. That's the only thing that's changed. Everything else is still there. So the big thing to know about cyberbullying, and when you look at your policy, it doesn't matter where it occurred. It does not matter what machine was used, a phone. It doesn't have to be it didn't have to be sent from your school or a computer in your school. If it affects the educational environment of your school, then you're required legally to deal with. And so you can ignore it at your own peril, but you need to find what your district policy is on it. But if I could tell you one thing, make sure that you involve law enforcement. And I'll tell you why. I had a situation where one of the APs that I trained when I was still working, he saw some kids gathered around a phone at Huff High School. And he went over and confiscated the phone, got it to the resource officer. They got a warrant, opened it up, and it was an 18-year-old high school student. He was convincing these middle school girls to send him inappropriate pictures, and then he was blackmailing them to have sex with underage girls. And he ended up, he's in prison now. And so that's the kind of thing that can happen with this stuff. And so you need to understand that, this is not new. No smarter than I am. Let me pull this one up. Let me share my screen. And I think I had this under last week. I didn't show it to you, but I'll show it to you this week. I think it was under last week. Yep. So I told you how smart I am, didn't I? That in 2011, I predicted the coming of what was going to be the big things in school in terms of discipline when I did the keynote at the Curry Convention Center for DPI. These are the things right here that I said was coming. This was going to be these were going to be our issues and problems. Let's see if it'll open. How close was it? Cyberbullying. I did this presentation in 2011, folks. I did this presentation 12 years ago. What's the hottest topic right now in school? Sexual harassment, Title IX, sexting, cyberbullying, using electronic media, and gang activity. It didn't take a genius. Obviously, you know that I'm not a genius, but all I had to do is look at the data and look at what was happening in social media, the emergence of Twitter, Facebook, those kinds of things, where we were headed with this. And so we'll talk about that one next week. But the notion here is you need to find out what your district is doing about cyberbullying, which is, where a lot of the harassment is coming, where a lot of the Title IX stuff is coming, a lot of the sexual misconduct stuff, all that stuff is stemming from online activity from kids. So you like I say, Elizabeth couldn't come yesterday. She had to wait today because a kid had sent a text death threat over the telephone. And she had to deal with that. She said, she spent 2 hours on that yesterday afternoon. And that's not one of those things that you can wait a week, or I'll get to that at the end of the week, or put it off to Friday. That's one of them right now things. That's one of them right now things. All right. So that's your assignment for next week. Back to our weekly schedule. And then your final one will be interview a school administrator about what their biggest concerns about discipline is, due process, punishment, following the code of conduct. What's their biggest concerns about discipline? Again, this is in preparation. Jessica can tell you, you get all the bad jobs as a new AP. You have to process discipline. Even if you're not ready to do it, you have to join right in. You have to be the LEA rep in the IAP meetings. You have to be the one that goes with the custodian to do the facilities. All the worst jobs, that's the ones you get as the new AP. And so this hopefully is in preparation for that. Now, our last meeting will be that Saturday. We will do case studies. I have all of them cataloged right here for you. You should be working in your groups. You should start this week if you haven't already to prepare your case studies. Let's see, case study 1. Here's your first case study. Now, I would suggest under case study materials, I've got some additional things for you here. And one of the things that I'm going to do, if I can be reminded to do it, is to make sure that I put you maybe some recordings of previous case studies in here, so you can kind of see what folks did. Let me see. Look at there. Case study 1. Case study from, here's one from students right here. Yeah, I've got some of these. I'll share these with you and let you see these. Let's see what this one. And they had PowerPoints, and we'll go through each of these, and so you can see.
And I do mean severe drug problem. I don't mean.
And so, I'll send you. I'll post some of these videos under case study material so that you can see what the expectation for the PowerPoints are. But here are all the different cases. Let me go back to our class. But again, under case study materials right here, I'll post those so that you'll have an idea. I also have the salient chapters in the principal law book that you should read to help you prepare for these. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to review general statutes as well. Duties and responsibilities of the school principal, here they are. So the first case study goes straight to 115C288A to grade and classify pupil. Principal is the one that does that. This is a case about a teacher assigning a failing grade for the year over a boy turning his brother's one homework assignment. She made the homework assignment count more than 50% of his yearly grade and failed him for the year, which is a zero tolerance expulsion, which is obviously, again, violates federal law. But you are the person who has to make that decision as a principal, and you have to make sure that your teachers are following the district's grading guide, which should be in your teacher handbook. We talked before about, call the law. Some things we make the accurate report to the superintendent and the local board. These are things, incidents that might have occurred at your school or things like that, or, to keep them a heads up. But there's also things where it says you have to call law enforcement first before the superintendent. That's the acts of crime and violence. We talked about that last week. But you need to understand, to conduct fire drills and inspect for fire hazards. Everybody knows about the monthly fire drill. They don't know about the twice monthly facilities inspection. Let me go over that document with you again. I've shown this to you before, but tonight's facilities night. So here it is. You got to do this twice a month. You got to do an assessment inventory of your physical environment. That talks about your cars, your buses, keeping them apart, how you supervise kids, doors, storage rooms, all those things. Everything has to be assessed. Hazards, doors propped open, access to your building, all those things have to be done twice a month. Again, you're supposed to do one of these. If you don't have one that your district uses, you can use mine. But this is the assessment inventory for your facilities. That's got to be done twice a month. So remember, when we talk about here are the laws, you got to just go right down the line here and make sure that you're doing all these things. Tonight, we're going to talk about facilities. There's facilities. And then to make available school budgets. We talked about the school improvement plan already, but we're going to talk about budget tonight. And so we're not going to spend very much time on facilities. What I do have, again, is under under this week, I've got several things that you can read on facilities if you'd like to. How to manage facilities, how to assess facilities, what's on the teacher working conditions survey that teachers are going to evaluate you on facilities. Let's look at that right quick. Here are the things that teachers are going to be asked on the South Carolina and North Carolina surveys about the facilities. So these things should be important to you. Some of them are out of your control, but they should be priorities that you try. You might have to use some of your school budget on, like internet connections, physical environment of the classrooms, adequate space to work productively, school environment is clean and well maintained. So that's what we're talking about. Computers, one-to-one, facilities and resources. These are the things that you're going to be adjudicated on by your teachers. So these are the things that you should be working on facilities. Planning and resources, let's see. This is a PowerPoint managing school facilities. This is a really good one. Again, Dr. Griffin Jordan did this one for us this summer. And I want to go through it if I can get it to open. There it comes. Managing school facilities. This is a new one. It's only 15 slides long. What is facilities management? She has all the different facets of that. And you can work through this. How do you plan? Culture, rigor, but again, so she's got a nice little one here on facilities and budget, and you can look at that one.
We had a faculty meeting today, and there was a lot about facility stuff because they're breaking ground to build the new wing of our school.
Yep.
And late December, early January. And student parking is going to move to the faculty parking lot, and there's going to be a lot of people on campus that won't have IDs or things, and how we're going to deal with that, and fences up, and it's so much.
Yeah, and that's the time when during trouble doesn't show up when everything's going well. When you have times like that's when trouble shows up. That's exactly right.
And all we're thinking about is like what windows we're going to have, what the new boards are going to look like, how the classrooms are going to set up. And all the principal is thinking about is, I hope they don't cut any electrical when they're trying to do this part. When they're taking up the student parking lot.
And different districts do it different ways in terms of who has to manage the construction and keep up with them. I was principal at Oak Hill up in Burke County, and it was about this time of year they were starting to build our new wing, and what they were supposed to do and what had been agreed upon, I guess, in the contract. And we had a construction management firm that was supposed to manage this, and everything was going to be perfect according to the assistant superintendent for facilities. But so they were going to build a straight wing onto the side of our octagon shaped building. We had a pod building, and it had a flat side. And off that flat side, we were going to, it was one of those old open classrooms buildings in Burke County where this big building didn't have a lot of interior walls. We're building a primary wing off of that for kindergarten and first grade classes, center hallway rooms on either side. And it was coming up against, think of a stop sign on one of the flat sides. We were building it. And so what they were supposed to do was build the wing up against the building and then do an interior demolition into that wing, which is, rather expensive. And so and that was what was agreed upon. But what they did one day is they brought a bulldozer and just tore the side of our building off, because that was much cheaper. And then when, running out screaming and yelling, what are you doing? They're like, well, we can't put it back up now. But they intentionally did that. That's the kind of stuff that you get into. That absolutely happened to me. They tore the side of our building off in wintertime. November in that part of the world is wintertime. We had snow by that time coming down off the mountain, and we nearly froze to death. I mean, there was no interior walls in the building. I mean, how they put up some plastic, and we about froze to death that way. That's the kind of stuff that, I mean, your construction people don't care about security. They don't care about safety. They don't care about any of that. They care about making money. And, you know, but your job is tasked with keeping the place safe. The parking will be a nightmare, you know, buses and cars in the same places, those kinds of things, stuff that we would never do. But during construction, we tend to lose our mind, except when you go to court, the standards haven't changed. You can't go to court and say, well, we're sorry that kid got run over and killed, but we were under construction. That doesn't matter. It's still your job to keep everybody safe, you know, in your facilities in a usable manner, even during times like this. And don't think that the construction people care or will assist you in that in any way. If it costs them a nickel more, they will not do it. So facilities are a major issue. But the main thing is keep them clean and keep your fire hazards down, keep the traffic, the cars and the buses separated, you know, just general things. You can't not ever have things, but the negligence things are what will get you, things that you knew were a problem and you didn't deal with. And so that brings me, and I can kind of get in on this one as well. We need to remember the three functions of negligence: misfeasance, malfeasance, nonfeasance. Misfeasance, we did the wrong thing. We didn't know it was wrong, but we did it and it turned out wrong. And then we have malfeasance. We intentionally did the wrong thing with intent. You know, we were doing the wrong thing. We knew it was wrong. We did it anyway. And then nonfeasance, we had a duty to act and didn't. On construction, you get hit with nonfeasance. You had a duty to act. You know, you knew they broke that door or disabled that door or propped that door open, and you had a duty to do something about it. But you know, it was just convenient to leave it that way. You knew that classroom didn't lock, or you knew those lockers were open to kids, and you know, so it's the nonfeasance that gets you on facilities in construction, because they're not going to help you. You're going to be at odds. So that makes facilities very difficult. So moving quickly on to budgets. I'm not going to teach you how to budget a school because it's done differently in every school and every school district around the world. But here are the common things that you need to know about school budgets. School budgets are made up of money from 4 different sources. Always 4 different sources. Public schools are made up from funds from 4 different sources. And so here they are. Your federal money comes first. Categorical aid, block grants, general federal aid, and flow through money. All right. There's no need to get into what each of those are, but just understand federal money is one stream. Now, the important thing is you have 4 streams of money. You can't cross them or combine them. They stand alone. Now, the majority of your federal money will be for your federal programs, your special populations. And what are they? Again, they are career and technical education in middle and high schools, exceptional children program, 504, academically gifted, Title I, and your English as second language programs. Those are your federal programs. They pay for the teachers. They send money to run the programs. The one that gets you the most is your Title I, because there is a differential, as I told you, between a Title I school and a Title I program. Title I school, everybody shares equally in the money. Any kid can be in any teacher's room. Title I program, only Title I kids can be in the Title I teacher's room, and only the money can only be spent on Title I kids. So again, federal money, 90-something% of it will be for those 6 federal programs: EC 504, ESL, second language, academically gifted, your career and technical education program, and your Title I program. Those are the ones that the feds fund, and you cannot put money with those, and you can't cross the lines with the money. Those are separate programs. The funding and the teachers are separate on those. The second source of money is from the state. This will be your case study on Leandro, where the The superintendent wants to divide the money up differently and give some schools more and some schools less. That's illegal, because the Leandro case in North Carolina, which is a national case, said that the money has to follow the kid, that every kid is due a basic education. The state says how much that is, $7,000-8,000 a year. And that money's got to go directly to that school for that kid. We subtract the absenteeism. We pay for the kids who attend school, average daily attendance. But there is a direct allotment based on how many kids you have that come from the state that pay for teachers and materials. That money is levied by the state through property sales and income tax. And then it's allotted to school districts based on the number of students that you have. 85% of it is in teacher salaries. All right. The third is your local. That's your district. Now, again, remembering, in North and South Carolina, school boards are unempowered. What does that mean? That means they cannot levy taxes and fund their own budget. Who do school districts in North and South Carolina have to go to get their money? They have to go to the local county commissioners, or if they're a city school system, they have to go to the town commissioners who do have taxing authority, and that's who funds their budget. Now, local money comes from property tax and sales tax, and so that's why you have the discrepancy between low wealth and high wealth districts. Charlotte-Mecklenburg is a high wealth district. Rutherford County is a low wealth district, because the property, the same house that would sell for $100,000 in Rutherford County will sell for $500,000 in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And when you go to pay your taxes, and trust me, I do in both places, there's a big differential in how much tax, the valuation of the property and the millage as well. And so basically for a similar property, you pay 5 times as much in Mecklenburg in property taxes as you would in Rutherford County, just 2 hours away. And so again, that affects the quality of schools that you have, is how much your ability to pay locally. Now, the low wealth districts, their problem is since 1966 in North and South Carolina, they have to pay for their own facilities. That means their buildings and their technology. That's a local. And in low wealth district, it takes all the money they have plus more just to keep their buildings open. They don't have money to spend on extra teachers or curriculum materials or any of those things. They really can't add to that per pupil to educate a child, because they're just trying to keep the buildings open. So remembering capital, which is buildings and technology, is up to the local school district. And that's a big burden for them, especially if they have a community college in their county as well, which also has to be funded by the county commissioners, a big part of it as well. And then finally, you have your own level of money, from money that you raise, boosters, fundraising, partnerships, foundations, and grants. Now, this one right here, I want to talk about grants specifically. Let me stop my share. If you can avoid it, don't get involved with grants. Now, I know that sounds crazy. The problem with getting involved with grants, now, if your district has one and it comes to you, that's fine. That's okay. That's good. But as a school principal and as an individual school, don't chase grants. And I'll tell you why. The majority of grants have to be administered. Somebody has to be paid, receipts, those kinds of things. You shouldn't be running that through your school budget, number one. And then number two on that is, most grants require in kind. That means you spend money or you give resources or teachers or whatever. You don't have those kinds of things to do that with. And so you can't match the in-kind matching part of a grant. Your district can. So if you're applying through your district, that's a good thing. Grants are a good thing. But I've seen principals that tried to get local grants, and then when it came time, they didn't have the resources to do the in-kind part and got themselves in trouble out trying to raise money to do that. Never a good thing to do. So district-wide grants, or one that comes through your district, good. individual school, do not get involved with grantsmanship. You don't have the resources to match or to pay, or you don't have the infrastructure. You just don't get involved in local grants. That's a fool's errand. The accounting is way too much as well. And so I won't go through this entire PowerPoint, but so there's the 4 sources. The one that I do want to talk about, let's see, 3 keys to effective. Types of budgeting systems, types of all these things. School-based budgeting resources, those kinds of things. You can read this stuff, but mostly what I want to talk to you about is fundraising. That's generally where you'll get your money, either through sales or through booster clubs, athletics, games, and those kinds of things. Now, your fundraising should be things where you're doing community service, community activity kind of things where people come, but you still have to do all the accounting that goes with it. Let me scroll down to this part of it. Now, all your districts will have something like this. Here are the budget laws, but fundraising at the middle fundraising has to be approved by your district. And it should be something educational or an activity. Candy sales are bad. They compete with your child nutrition program. Those kinds of things, you need to avoid those. Car wash, ball games, that kind of thing, things that increase community spirit. Those things are, they're the lesser of the evils. But here's the bottom line on fundraising, and this is the biggest mistake. I'll stop my share again. This is the biggest mistake I see principals make. They think that they can delegate the responsibility and the accountability for fundraising to the PTO or the football boosters or whoever. You can delegate the activity, but not the responsibility and the accountability. Let me say that again. You can delegate the activity, but not the accountability or the responsibility. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's very simple. You can put your PTO in charge of a fundraiser, but if the money gets gone, you're the one responsible. It's called failure to maintain fiscal accountability. And so if they sell a bunch of stuff and it gets stolen, or they don't deliver it, or they have a bunch of returns, that's on you. If your booster club spends a bunch of money that you didn't approve, and you got a bunch of bills, or they didn't make as much money as they thought, that's all on you. I would never delegate fundraising to any group, because you have no control over it, and you're responsible for it. It shows in your budget. You have to account for every penny of it, and they have to do the same rules in terms of they have to deposit the money nightly. They can't, they have, it's just like the regular school, and parents tend not to do that. And then they want to tell you how to spend it, and it may not be allowable. No, fundraising is a evil, but if you do it, you must maintain both the accountability and responsibility function of it, along with the activity.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
So, like, for fundraising, are the rules different for like elementary school and high school? Because we do a lot of different stuff in high school that we couldn't do in elementary school. So, I don't know.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Let me share my screen and go back to that. See right here, there are different, because they're students, clubs, organizations, booster club. The rules are different in secondary than from elementary. Elementary, they don't want kids out selling. They don't want them out doing things that would expose them to predators. It's probably not a good idea. See right here, the following are recommend to encourage community club and festivals, carnivals, dances, car wash, barbecues, concerts, student faculty games. Those are for secondary. Fundraising at the middle and high school. Districts divided up. Now at the elementary, they don't really, you see, there's nothing on elementary. Basically, what they want you to do on elementary is send something home and let parents send money.
Right. I'll say we didn't do anything.
That's what I mean. That the only thing that's allowable now for elementary is you can solicit money from parents, but elementary kids are not supposed to be involved in fundraising in any way that would put them in harm's way. That is correct. That's a great point. That's why it says fundraising at the middle and high school level, and it's very specific. You got to get it approved up front. You got to show it in your budget. And again, if your PTA or PTO absconds with the money, you're responsible for it. At best, you'll get demoted. At worst, you'll get fired. But again, you want to do things that work on that community spirit thing that we talked about before. That's in the law. That says that you should do activities that promote community spirit. That's what we're talking about here. But only at, I wouldn't do these at middle school. I would only do these at high school as well. I don't like middle school kids being involved. But yes, there are laws. This is a district policy.
A friend of mine worked at a high school where they did a fundraiser for the prom committee, and the money went missing, and they were no longer at that school.
That is correct.
So yeah, it does happen
all the time. All the time. Somebody absconds with the money all the time. You cannot put, only you and your financial secretary should ever be in contact with the money. You should not put yourself in situations where you send items out with parents or members where you're expecting them to return money back to you. No, don't ever put yourself in that situation. Don't get involved in sales. Now, if you're doing events, you got to do a ticket reconciliation, and you got to deposit that money every night. It can't go home with somebody. It can't go in somebody's desk. But if you're having a ball game, you're supposed to sell tickets and do reconciliation with the cash box and the number of tickets sold. So you better have, you better have good control of that as well. You can't just be, well, this is how much money we took in. Nope, you sell tickets, and then you reconcile the number of tickets you sold, that people that entered the game with the amount of money you got in the cash box. Anything that you do, whether it's a dance or a ball game or any of that, that's what you're supposed to do. Now, these booster clubs, like the cheerleaders go out and wash cars, you better have an adult there that's handling the money. That work, the cheerleading sponsor better be the one that's there handling that money. And they've got to deposit it the same as that day. And it says right here. Now, pre-numbered tickets is what I'm talking about. Has to be, you have to do a ticket reconciliation. That money's got to be bagged, put in night depository at night. No case shall funds be left at school or taken home overnight. Things like this, your vocational courses, your career and technical courses, they cannot be used. They can make a little money to offset their costs, but they can't be competing with businesses. When I became a high school principal in Charlotte, one of the biggest complaints that I had was their carpentry class was building these little backyard buildings that you see, like Mays Manufacturing, and selling them cheaper than Mays Manufacturing could. They were competing with the local business. I told you I had an English teacher. They stopped having photography 6 years, and he was shooting pictures, and he was competing with the studios, Strawbridge and Owen Mills and people like that. Can't do that. And you're never supposed to use instructional time for fundraising. Think about it. So here in effect is what happens if you're fundraising during instructional time. Who's paying teachers' salaries? Either the federal government or the state government. But you're using that time that they paid for to raise money that you have control of. They don't like that, to say the least, and it's a really bad trade. I don't care. The best fundraiser you know makes pennies on the dollar versus what their salary, those teachers' salaries cost you. So it's not only a bad economic, but also you're spending somebody else's money, having teachers raising money during instructional time because you're not paying them. Either the federal government's paying for your CT, through your federal programs, or the state government is paying teachers. And they don't like it when, you take their people that they're paying to raise money for you. And it's a really bad, it's probably in the neighborhood. I think I did a cost benefit analysis one time. I think it's 50-1 that you're paying $50 in salary for about every dollar that you raise. That's a really bad ratio, by the way. That you couldn't stay in business if you were losing that kind of money. And that's why state and the feds really don't like you doing that kind of stuff. I mean, more than really don't like it, they'll fire you if you get caught doing that. It's not just you're wasting instructional time. You're spending somebody else's money to waste instructional time. They have no sense of humor about that at all. So you better not be using instructional time to raise money. And it's right here in the rules. Got to have a reconciliation. I saw about a ticket seller's report. All these rules. Everything's got to be receipted daily. The use of the money, all funds must be used to benefit the school program. They have to be approved before you hold them. So all employees are prohibited from soliciting or selling, as well at your, bring in a 31 or a Lululemon or whatever and putting the catalog in the lounge. That's not allowed. Tutoring, you can't tutor any kid that you teach. You really shouldn't like teachers to tutor kids in your building.
So fundraising during teacher time, when we're supposed to be teaching, okay, like for instance, yesterday was Halloween, so the kids could pay $2 if they wanted to wear their costumes or a hat. And so we took the money up from our first period classes. Is that like fundraising?
It is fundraising.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you took it up on time that you were supposed to be doing instruction.
Okay.
I wonder if that was approved by the superintendent.
I don't know. I'm not gonna ask.
I wouldn't ask. Don't poke the bear. Don't tell them Dale said so. But that's exactly what you're not supposed to do.
Oh, okay.
It's exactly what you're not supposed to do. Remember, everything's supposed to be approved. Now, the superintendent, I asked, the superintendent right here, unless expressly authorized in writing by the superintendent, you can't do this stuff. Now the superintendent does have the authority granted by the state to approve those kinds of things. Generally, they're smart enough not to, but I don't know how smart yours is.
So what could happen? Like the band, they're selling those chocolate bars. I mean, they all have their little boxes in class. We just buy them from the kids.
Again, that's that booster club. There's some exceptions on those, but truthfully, Siobhan, what you get in trouble with that is they sell them before lunch is over. That's a violation of federal law. If you sell any food items before lunch is over, the last lunch shift, now they can have them, but they're not supposed to sell them until 1 o'clock.
The kids?
Yeah.
They're competing with the cafeteria.
Yeah, that the cafeteria is federal. Your cafeteria is federal. Child nutrition program, the federal government sends the money to pay those ladies and for the food that's in it's in your cafeteria. You're not supposed to have any competition with them until after the last plate of food is served.
Oh, wow.
That's federal law.
You're just breaking the law.
Yeah. Again, this is where most laws are broken.
The school I was at before would open up the basketball concessions during lunch.
Oh, wow. I mean, our kids are selling some of anything like all day, every period. The kids are like, "Hey, Miss Cook, you want to buy this? Hey, Miss Cook, you want to buy this?"
Yeah, I know, but they're not.
We have teachers that buy snacks from the grocery store and sell them out of their cabinets in the back of the room that's supposed to go in the grade level fund.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna move my classroom 2 doors down farther from that. Like, just try to get out of the blood circle. That's all I'm trying to do. And she's like, oh, the principal doesn't really know. And I'm like, I can't hear this. I just need to
Exactly.
go back to my room. I'm gonna go back to my room and not hear more things.
Yeah.
And that's it,
Exactly.
because it's just one thing after another like that. I'm like, please don't ever let me be assistant principal here. That's what I'm like telling myself. Please
Yeah.
don't let it be here. Please don't. Because I'm like, yeah, see, Jessica's like, because all these people I work with, I'm like, oh, this is going to be so tragic if I have to be, because it's so bad.
Yeah. Well, I told you the first day that you principal at a new school, somebody from the central office will call you and say, let's have lunch, or I'm going to come by and have lunch. And what they've got is what I colloquially refer to as the book. All the illegal stuff that's going on that has to stop that day because you got a new principal. No more English teacher teaching, doing photography classes and competing with Strawbridge and that, no more the carpentry teacher building, 8 by 12 yard buildings out back. That's the kind of stuff. No more your band selling candy during lunch. Or what was it? I had one group that was, this was in the days before we started doing the Domino's pizza kiosk actually in the cafeteria. I had one group that would go and buy pizzas and sell pizzas in the floor of the cafeteria to the kids. Now, if that's not directly competing with child nutrition, I mean, that's just in your face. They were buying Domino's pizzas right up at the corner on Sandy Porter Road in 49. There was a Domino's, and they were delivering them to our own cafeteria, and they were selling them in our cafeteria. That has to stop today. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. When I was an elementary principal, one of my stops, the principal was he had Pepsi machines, and he was going to Walmart and buying drinks and putting them in the Pepsi machine and selling the drinks out of the Pepsi man's machine. That makes them real mad, by the way. I mean, I've seen it all. I could sit here for the next 4 hours and tell you stories of financial impropriety from the time that I was either principal or in the central office and I had to deal with them. Now I am not. I told you, I'm hoping I'm losing weight, trying to get back in shape here because I'm gonna have to get out and roll underneath the gate to get in heaven like Indiana Jones did that time. All the bad stuff that I've done. I had a room when I was a high school principal. I hope the statute of limitations run out on this one. I had a room and I had a man. I knew a guy, and I sold candy to the teachers for their organizations. They had to buy their candy from me, and I got to cut off the top. We sold candy 365 days out of the year, all day long, every day. But when I became principal there, we were $200,000 in debt. We hadn't paid for the prom. We hadn't paid for the annual. We owed the Pepsi man. We hadn't, all the money had been being taken out of the Pepsi machines and was just gone. The AP that did that, he retired right quick. I mean, this place was a financial disaster. I mean, we were $200,000 in debt. We hadn't paid Jostens. We hadn't paid the Sheridan for the prom. I mean, we owed everybody in town. And they said, it's up to you to, I had the books run, and they said, yeah, you're that far in the hole. How'd you let it get this bad? Well, that's why you're here. Well, what do you expect me to do to fix it? You just got to find a way. Well, my way was I sold candy every day, all day. Didn't have any other options, but I'm just telling you, you're not supposed to do any of that stuff. So
we call that supporting your local dentist at our school. If you sell candy, it's just, you're not competing, you're supporting local dentistry. So
that's exactly right. Yeah, we just rock just like we did last night when we gave out a truckload of candy last night at the house. All right. So here are the state budget laws. I just went over. Now, again, your budget policies for your district, they have them. They will vary. Again, these are Charlotte-Mecklenburg's. where I work right here. And so you will have similar ones. And Siobhan's exactly right. Most of them don't even have policies for elementary. You're not supposed to do it. It's just for middle and high school. So here are under the general statutes, 115C for public education in North Carolina. Here are the things that you have to be mindful of as a principal. The school principal shall maintain a copy of the school's current budget. You have to make a budget that shows all 4 of your revenue streams. It shows your federal money, your state money, your district money, and your local money. You got to have all 4 revenue streams on that budget. And it is not private. Again, it is not private. Somebody, a parent or a interested party comes by, you have to give them a copy of your budget. Now, what we don't do is we don't put like salaries, but now they're released, the paper releases them now, but forever, we would just put on our budget, the state pays for these teachers by name and the feds pay for these by name. We wouldn't say how much they made, but the paper now lists that, how much they make. But you have to show how much money you're getting from the state, how much the federal money. If you're getting Title I money, you have to show that on there. This is full disclosure. So you have to maintain the budget. You have to show all 4 budget streams. Understanding that when school money is allotted to schools, either by the feds or by the state, it does not come in lump sum at the beginning of the year. It comes in 10 installments, and you have to give them data and they give you money. And again, they subtract from the money they give you, they subtract absenteeism. But understand, we work on the modified accrual accounting system. You have to have funds on hand as a district to start the year. You pay for the first month, the feds reimburse you, and then you have money to pay for the second month, and so on. That's the way it works. This notion that if a kid starts in a charter school and he comes back to you for the second month, that they've got all the money, that is not true. You get money after the fact, and you only get it a month at a time, and they subtract absenteeism. And so you got to make sure that you spend the money the right way at the district level and at the school level. Again, you have accounting system, again, daily deposits, reconciliation, tickets, no money goes home, any of those things. You have to be audited every year. You got to pass your audit. So they're gonna come in and audit you every year and make sure that you haven't misspent the money, and that you don't owe a bunch of money. You have to have your books and records. You go to jail, you'll lose your license and go to jail if you conceal, falsify, or if you're running 2 sets of books. Again, all these things about how you have to treat money. There has to be 2 signatures on the local account. It has to be you and your bookkeeper, your financial secretary. And you can't have single signature checks, and special funds. So right here, what I was telling you is, you can see it is the local's responsibility for facilities. It's right here. The state does not pay for your buildings nor pay to maintain your buildings. That is a local responsibility. It shall be the duty of local boards of education, who can't levy taxes. And so what they're saying, and tax levying authorities, that's who funds the Board of Education's budget. Now, tax levying authority is either your town council or your county commissioners, in order to safeguard the investment to keep all school buildings in good repair. So they are responsible for building them and maintaining them. And that's what makes districts poor, is that they're building poor. Capital. Technology is considered capital too. That's why low wealth districts don't have extra teachers to reduce class size, and don't have software and programs and those kinds of things, because they're trying to keep the doors open and keep the buildings safe and in good repair. This is one right here that I really need for y'all as I close out tonight. shall be the duty of local boards of education to provide classroom facilities. That's the charter school rule right there. So when a charter school opens, they're a public school, even though they're run privately. The county does not have to give them or build them a building. They can just provide them classrooms. That's why they give them the old mobile units. That's how most charter schools start, or that back in the day, that's how most of them did. But this one right here is the one that my story that ends us tonight is: local boards of education may adopt rules and regulations under which that would be the Board of Education, may enter into agreements permitting non-school groups to use school, real, and personal property. Because the local keeps the buildings up, the local Board of Education may enter to an agreement. So you see, like, renting out for a church to use your building on Sunday and those kinds of things where you try to make money. But it said, but who did it say specifically enters into that agreement? The local Board of Education. You have some department in your central office does community use of schools. And they're the people that do that. They're the people who do that. You should not in any way allow anybody, including yourself, to use school facilities or property in any way that they don't have a contract with your local school district. So here's my final story for the evening. I was looking for a new assistant principal at the high school, and I was interviewing, and this young man came in. He had only been in the district a short while. He was, I don't know, mid-30s, was married, had small kids. He was originally from Florida. CMS had recruited him and wanted him to be a fast-track AP to a principal job. And so they sent him over to me. His name was Jerry Winklejohn. And I offered him the job there at the high school, and he said he really would prefer to be in middle school. CMS had recently, I was a junior high principal in Charlotte, but we'd recently converted to middle schools, and he wanted to be a middle school principal. So he felt like the middle school would be a better fit. But he was a nice young man, really enjoyed him. We became personal friends, played golf. He didn't work for me. Again, he didn't work for me. But he was still young and fairly athletic. He was a good golfer. We played, but he got involved with a group of middle school daddies. He got a middle school job, and he moved up pretty quick and became principal at Ransom Middle School. They fast tracked him. He'd been an AP in Florida, so he only had to be, an AP for like 6 months in Charlotte till he got his licensure straightened out. And I think second semester he was principal at Ransom, and so. I want to say the next fall, the next fall was his first fall, but during the fall, some daddies and I think some teachers, they, wanted to do a flag football league. And so, well, yeah, we can do that here at school. So they had a little flag football league. They were playing flag football on the school's ball field. And Jerry was young and athletic, and he dove for a ball. It's my understanding. I wasn't there. We played golf regularly, but I wasn't involved in the flag football. I was a little older. And he dove for a ball. And I don't know how in the world it happened. But it did. He broke his neck. Paralyzed from the neck down. Permanent. Here's the problem. No contract on community use of schools. Wasn't an authorized workplace accident. No workman's comp. Insurance, no pay. Hadn't been in the system 5 years to get vested in North Carolina. Couldn't retire. Such a tragic story. Such a tragic story. Now, it wouldn't have changed what happened to him physically if they'd have, if he'd had a contract, if his group had had a contract, community use of school contract. But because he didn't have any of that, they were just like trespassers. Financially, it ruined it. Not only did it ruin his health, being a quadriplegic, but that. So no matter how insignificant you think it is, or what group it is, or whatever, everybody, yourself included, and teachers, if you're doing something on the weekends that's not a school activity, or in the evenings, it's not a school activity, you're playing ball or you're having a pickup game in the gym, doesn't matter. The answer is either no or have a contract. That's one that will slip up and get you as well. Somebody gets hurt, somebody gets assaulted, something gets torn up. You don't want to be in the middle of any of that. I can just tell you that right now. That will not go well for you. So that's that. So that's a quick, again, there's some really good PowerPoints and some good materials there. There's some chapters in your book, but that's a quick overview of budget and facilities, your responsibilities in each of those. You might want to go over those a little bit more, but I'm telling you, the money, it'll get you quick. Don't get involved in fundraising. Don't get involved in letting your facilities be used by others. Make sure your facilities are maintained. Understand when those construction guys show up, they are not your friend. They are not your friend. You will be forever going behind them and trying to keep yourself out of prison over dumb stuff that they do. That's just a convenience for them because they're not responsible, but you are. You're responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of the people who work there and the kids that go to school there. Facilities is your responsibility. Hopefully folks at your county office level will help you, but most of those guys won't. They don't want to be responsible. They want you to be, because the law says you are. And they're not about to take over that responsibility and that liability for you. So you got to do what you got to do. You know, your job is not to be the most accommodating host in the world for construction people. Your job is to keep your facility safe. You got to understand that. And that's at odds. 99 out of 100 times with construction, the aims of you and them are at odds. They're trying to save money and get done. You're trying to keep people safe and not go to jail because somebody got hurt. And it's not going to be a collegial relationship. I'll just tell you that before we start. Questions you have for me? Again, next week we're going to do bullying, cyberbullying. We'll kind of wrap up, negligence, some of those kinds of things, responsibilities. When we meet the 18th and 19th, the 18th, we'll do case studies all day. We'll do 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And then we'll end up with Bishop Jakes on Sunday on the 3 types of people, that followers that you have, colleagues, confidants, and comrades. We'll do that one, which is a good lesson in leadership. All right. Good materials in there that you can review. I've just given you an overview tonight. I prefer not to sit and read those. All right. I will see y'all again next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you. Appreciate you being with me tonight.